So we are going to be talking about transformative technologies, and I am a perfect person to talk about this because I began my career in 1988. I know I look a lot younger, but nevertheless, 1988 in journalism at The Economist newspaper in London. And on my second day, I was shown the information room. And the information room was a room with 20 people in it, whose sole job was to go through physical newspapers and cut out articles on different themes, stick them to a piece of paper, and put them in the relevant file. So there was a cars file, there was a General Motors file, there was a file for aviation, there was a file for. And so there were these 20 people doing this, and there was one other person whose job was basically to go find the files that were put in the wrong place by the journalists who were too lazy to put them back in the right place. And so if you were on deadline and a story broke, you had to go find the file or find the person who knew where to find the file. And it took it took hours and hours and days for us to do these things, and massive amount of resource. And then all of a sudden, 2004, Google came along. Search. All of a sudden, wow, my life changed completely. Transformative technology. Unfortunately, little did we know what it was going to do to the entire media industry at the time. And clearly, that has been a dramatic pace of change. And Vijay mentioned this morning in his opening introduction what the Washington Post has done with ARC, its platform for publishing. And this is the world that we live in. I, as a journalist at MIT Technology Review, tasked with following all kinds of leading-edge technologies, everything from artificial intelligence to quantum computing. And I'm delighted to have three illustrious panelists with me today to whisk through a number of these core technologies that are impacting all of us. And we're going to talk about the technologies themselves and how they're being practically applied in business. So I'm going to ask each one of my panelists to just do a very brief kind of 60-second introduction of who they are and talk just very briefly about their companies. Robin, would you like to kick off?
I'll kick off. Robin Hensley, and I'm at UPS, and I started my career as a computer engineer. So I spent about 10 years writing code and working up through, I was at Compaq and HP, making servers and storage systems, and along the way had a few patents. So pretty exciting to go from the pre-internet you talked about, before the internet, to post-internet. And even as I got my MBA, I actually started my MBA before the internet, went and had a family and a baby, and then went back to the MBA after the internet, which was a really big transition. But now I'm at UPS, and I'm very excited about the technology changes at UPS for 110 years, starting with conveyor belts and some physical technologies all the way up to what we have today.
Wow, so, fabulous. Thank you. Eugene.
Eugene Izhikevich. I'm using a mic. It sounds like somebody told me when I use a mic,
you sound even better.
I sound like I have an accent.
Strange that.
And then I heard you and I said, yep, that's the mic.
What do you mean, me?
But then Robin doesn't have an accent, so...
I'm from San Francisco, can't you tell?
I'm a recovering academic. I was in an academic career until 2009. Okay. I have a number of papers and books, textbooks devoted to computational neuroscience and brain modeling. Wow. My latest textbook is used by every major university to teach computational neuroscience graduate courses. In 2009, I started Brain Corporation with the sole purpose of commercializing what I learned from neuroscience and building artificial brains. We build brains for robots.
Brains for robots. Fabulous. We'll come back to that one. It's amazingly leading edge. Nick, I gather you were a student of Vijay's, and that he told me you're an absolute star. Apparently you never turned up to class. Is that true?
That's true. So I graduated here in 2011 in the MBA program, and then started my career in marketing at Taco Bell, where I ran social media and digital marketing. And then went to a startup company called Stance Socks, where we literally made socks. Ended up raising $125 million in venture capital and ended up turning, a huge return for our investors. And then actually sold $125 million worth of socks a year. So after that, I was recruited to go to this startup called Samsung. Just last year, we became the 6th largest brand in the world. And we make literally everything, things that I didn't even know we made. So my current role, as of last week with this new reorg, is actually heading up all media and partnerships and all the creative for SCA marketing, so that's Samsung Electronics America, as well as some of our Samsung Next partnerships, which is our venture and our investment innovation team.
Fantastic. Great. So let's start with brains for robots.
Yeah.
How, I mean, you basically take existing machines and put brains in them? Or, so you're like a kind of brain transplant? Kind of, exactly what does this do, Eugene? Tell us about the operating system that you developed.
Sure. I want to paraphrase Peter Thiel, who said that science fiction writers of the 20th century promised us robots and flying cars, and instead we got 140 characters.
Yeah.
Yeah. And great socks.
Yeah,
and great socks.
Yeah.
So where are those robots, right, that they promised to us? It might be a surprise to us that actually all those robots already exist today. They're made by thousands of manufacturers and sold to millions of people and customers. And I see confusion in your face is that the reason we don't treat those machines, those machines as robots, because they all require people to operate, to steer, to push, to pull. So we created technology. We can take anything that has wheels and turn it into a self-driving robot.
So anything with wheels?
Anything with wheels. As long as you only operate in environments where speeds are slow, and stopping and freezing is always the safest thing you can do, which excludes driving on freeway, driving on roads, but includes pretty much any navigation in this room, in distribution centers, in malls, stores, airports, any kind of indoor environment or outdoor environment with slow speed. So we cannot reveal our volumes, we can't reveal our customers, but a lot of robots operate during public hours, so the people go and take pictures, and there are articles appearing that robots with brains operate in Walmart. They can be seen in malls and airports. It's all our technology.
I just saw that Walmart has announced it's rolling out 50 robots to go up as a test to sort of go up and down store aisles to inventory, and it can do one about sort of 20 times quicker than a human would be able to do. So you're seeing this kind of like advance very quickly. Can you give us any other examples beyond that of how it's being used in the field? I know you can't necessarily name particular customers.
It's pretty much, so think our first beachhead product was robot brains for robots in commercial floor care.
Commercial floor care, so cleaning.
Yes, okay. Cleaning, professional cleaning, which is a $10 billion per year industry in the US that nobody heard of, because very rarely you're in Walmart at 1 a.m. just to see two people driving those big machines for 4 hours each to clean the Walmart, right? Or when you're waiting in an airplane and you see 25 people driving those machines in a big airport or in a mall. So this is just, we already signed up licensing agreements for our technology with 6 out of 8 top OEMs in this industry, including #1 in China, #1 in the US, #1 in the world.
Right.
And right now we're moving our technology to other types of robots. So I'm just give you a little bit of preview. Think of autonomous golf carts. Think of autonomous wheelchairs. Not wheelchairs for handicapped people necessarily, but chairs for you and me. Like, so you have a self-driving car dropping you at the airport, and then what? And then chair comes to you, picks you up.
Self-driving chair.
Why not?
Awesome.
Think of a hospital. Like we talk about hospitals that if you're 85-year-old, you're not.
Thank you.
You don't look like yet, but getting from your home to the hospital it's not difficult, right? Like you get to you drive to the parking lot. Getting from a parking lot to the doctor, going through all those stairs, all those all those corridors, it's extremely excruciating. You're in pain doing this. So think of all this personalized transportation. Think of all the delivery carts and pallet jacks that have wheels and right now require people to move them. So all this could be automated, not with some future technology. The technology that we already had last year. We already have it.
Wow. Either of you two using robots in any way in various places and want to just talk about that? Robin, anything at UBS?
Well, I can jump in with, I'll actually move over to augmented
Sure,
humans.
yeah.
So more of the augmented technology for humans, because we still want our steps. No. But so at UPS, just really today, so we grow our business. So every day we ship about 16 million packages per day. During our peak season, that grows to about 31 million packages per day. So we hire up to 95,000 workers during that time. So to have those workers come on board, be safe, be able to do their job very quickly, we use some augmented technology. And it's everything from your mobile devices that for somebody that's going to be delivering that day, it's their first day, they've never delivered before. They basically just look at their phone and say, what is the best route to take, and even a walking route? And where should I deliver? Should I deliver to the back door? Should I deliver to the garage? Is there a code for the garage? And then even inside our centers, as you're sorting packages, it's a fairly noisy environment. So we just have Bluetooth that basically you turn on, and as you're scanning, and whether it's a ring scanner or other scanning devices that we have, it'll very quickly just in your ears, would say blue, go to the blue belt, go to the yellow belt. And so a person can literally walk on board and be able to be productive very, very quickly.
And so how big a change has that been in what kind of time period? You've brought that in the space of a year, or? This
is basically last year is when we started having the mobile device for our temporary workers, because we already have a mobile device, and you probably have seen your UPS person with their mobile device, but this is just on a phone.
Got it.
So it would scale much more rapidly. And other devices we've had, and we've added the Bluetooth recently. So it's every year. Every year we're taking what's off the shelf. Just take it what's off the shelf and just use it.
Wow. Nick, is anything from Samsung sort of down there? You're putting wheels on like washing machines, or I did actually see, I think there was an ad, so it showed like a fridge that would like roll around and serve you beer, which I think is perfect for that. Yeah. I mean, I think it's serious. I mean, it's like, if you're elderly and you can't get to the fridge, I mean, it's like, get the fridge to come.
But you need a beer, yeah, absolutely.
I'm not joking. I mean, there is one out, I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe I'm joking. No, I'm not.
I mean, we do, yes, we make a lot of these different products that are sort of in this vein, but we also leverage them to do our manufacturing. One of the interesting points that we were looking at is we have 400,000 employees globally, a lot of which are engineers, and a lot of them are in the manufacturing process.
Right.
So it's not just about eliminating these roles with like robots, but how do you actually redeploy them to do something that helps to transform the business even further? Like that's kind of the things that we're thinking about right now as we look at things like robotics. On the product side, if you just take a walk through CES, it's insane the types of things that people are trying to come up with and trying to automate. Like we saw this machine where you actually put in a shirt and then it folds it for you and it spits it back out as like a folded shirt, which it solves a pain point of like not wanting to do laundry or fold clothes. But when you think about buying this, $5,000 machine and it takes up a little more space and you still have to set the shirt just the right way on it, it's not at the point yet where it actually is going to transform behavior or something that people can actually use.
I'd like to move on to some other technology. Yeah. Just before we do, Vijay raised this point this morning about responsibility of technologists who are developing these new technologies to think about their impact. And clearly there's a debate around robotics and what it might lead to and where we end up. Eugene, how do you think about that as a leading technologist, a roboticist in the field? How do you think about those issues?
Actually, it's a common misconception that robots are replacing jobs. They may be in manufacturing sector, but what we notice that, and this is a bold claim, that I don't know a single example of a single job lost because of our robots. What they do is they augment people. First of all, customers who buy in robots with our technology, they simply couldn't hire for those jobs, right? A lot of them are minimum wage jobs, and if you have a person who are doing this job, the person is augmented to do something the robot cannot do. Plus, they bring other aspects. This is a real story. So we always interview janitors who use our machines because we want to improve user interface. And we talked to one lady, just asked her about, aren't you afraid of losing your job? And she dismissed immediately. She said, there are so many things that robot cannot do, I'm not afraid of this.
Yes.
But I'll tell you this. I have a 14-year-old daughter. What can I tell her? I'm just a janitor. But with your robot, I'm robot operator, and she's so proud of me.
That's fast. Job of the future, robot operator. Very interesting. And I don't suppose we're anywhere near Terminator robot fridges yet, but maybe one day we'll get there. We have to just think a little bit about that.
I have one comment on the whole responsibility thing.
Please do.
So we make the probably most addictive item on the planet, so cell phones, on smartphones. And one of the things that we took really seriously was this idea of like helping people disconnect as much as we want them to connect. So we partnered with Ariana Huffington on this initiative called Thrive, and we created this app. So in the same way that like everyone uses electricity, but when you go to sleep, it's easier to sleep with the lights off. Like there needs to be moments where you disconnect. So this Thrive app allows you to be in Thrive mode, so you can actually disconnect from your phone. It'll alert people that you're in Thrive mode, and you won't get a text, you won't get an email, you won't get anything to bother you, so you can actually spend that quality time with who you need to spend that quality time with. So things like responsibility with technology and this idea of tech for good.
Does it tell you? I mean, because I could just turn my phone off, right? But this app, it actually encourages you to turn it off?
It sets like limitations and restrictions, and when someone actually messages you, it won't just be like a blank response. It'll actually tell them that you're like, Martin's on Thrive mode, he'll be available at 8 p.m., and then you can engage with him at that point.
Got it.
So really just ways that we can make tech for good is something that we're really focused on.
Okay. Let's talk a bit about, we came across this several times this morning, about big data and artificial intelligence. Robin, how is UPS using both big data and AI to improve its business?
So you're right. So this is really big. And even today we have a chat bot. So we were one of the first to put out a chat bot that was linked with, we have a service called My Choice. So you sign up for My Choice, it's free. And then you can redirect your packages, you know when your packages are coming, and it's connected to the bot. So you can just ask the bot, do I have any packages coming? You don't have to tell it what the routing, what the number is, anything. And then the same with our website, that we have a virtual assistant. So the virtual assistant is there to answer your question, and we have put this up during our peak season this year, and it was very, very successful. So a lot of people went to the virtual assistant, and we say it's a virtual assistant. It says, I'm your virtual assistant, I am a machine. So it's not like we're trying to trick anybody.
Right.
And many people just want to have their questions answered as efficiently as possible. And also there's learning that happens behind it, that it will continue to learn natural language and how you might be saying that I'm looking for my package or I have some sort of issue, and then it can very quickly get you to the right route.
Right.
And the right route can be a human.
Got it.
Because it very quickly will say, oh, I understand what you're saying. You need to talk to this person and take you directly to that, so you don't have to go through a long call tree and try to figure out who you need to call.
Really interesting. I mean, I've seen a number of startups that are working on kind of like assessing kind of emotional state through kind of voice. And so, you can kind of work out how frustrated the customer is relative to the tone of voice or the words they're using. And so it's almost like it's not a person, but it's getting towards human-like capabilities. It's really impressive how fast this is going. Yeah. I guess scary on the other side as well, because like these machines are learning, and they are machines, learning incredibly fast. But, in terms of other areas, I mean, I know you guys have been sort of at the leading edge of your business using technology to sort of route vans, or delivery vans, using it to sort of schedule maintenance. I mean, how fast is that going?
So for a number of years, we've had a service called Orion, which is on-road integrated optimization and navigation. So we love our acronyms. So that would be Orion. But basically, it's using big data and algorithms to dynamically determine the best route. So in the past, you would have your UPS driver would take pretty much the same route every day and deliver the packages. And now we can dynamically create the best route. And using this, we are saving tremendous amount of money as well as miles. And when you think about 1 mile per driver per day is $50 million per year. So this
$50 million.
It is a huge savings, and of course it's saving fuel, at the same time, and emissions and idle time. So this algorithm is continually getting better. So we're continually to put in different types of big data, and including traffic data and weather data, and use that to actually make the route even better.
That's amazing.
But I have a quick question.
Yeah.
At what point do you decide to leverage your existing technology or build your own versus leveraging existing, like Waze? Like, could Waze do the same thing, or do you need to actually build your own?
It's a really good question because, and that's a question we constantly look at, because why would we waste time in building technology that already exists. So, by the way, at the time that we created this, there wasn't a waste. So,
you should have made that.
Yeah, spun it out. Corporate innovation.
And as these, but you're right, because as these new feeds come in, those become actual new feeds of big data to help it. Now, in the case of UPS, we're driving rather large trucks, that may not fit, in certain spaces.
Sure.
So Waze would actually not be a good thing to send a UPS truck down. But nonetheless, if you can program in, the right kind of feeds, you can get there.
You could send one of Eugene's robots.
One of the robots with our brain.
With your brain, absolutely.
We were funded by Qualcomm, and one first thing I learned, or the major thing I learned from Qualcomm, that if I want to build world's biggest robotics company, I should stay away from robots.
Do it to existing stuff as opposed to
instead of
come up with a
not building, not manufacturing them, but partner with companies that already do that.
Right.
So there are quite a few equipment manufacturers for transportation, from big trucks to small trucks. Now, if we stay away from public roads, then definitely the future is just autonomous delivery.
Got it.
Well, and I wanted to add to that because it almost goes to Internet of Things. So we think about sensors. So and then smart cities. So we are involved with the U.S. Department of Transportation and in the development of smart cities. But you were talking about feeds, and additional feeds. So I see huge opportunities coming in. And even today at UPS, so we have these trucks, and they're basically covered with sensors. And so we're collecting over 200 elements per day to help us really optimize, again, the delivery routes and methods, as in the even maintenance, to watch the maintenance schedule. So we're doing this today, and we just continue to build on these capabilities. But I can see more and more of this coming, probably quicker than we even think.
Yeah, we're already investing in exactly what you're talking about. So the idea of 5G is sort of like a little bit of a buzz, all a buzz right now. And when we looked at sort of the landscape, there's only so much we can iterate our current technology, but the idea of connecting everything is sort of the path that everyone wants to go. So when we looked at the transformation of everything, you started off with like 2G, where you could actually text people. You have 3G that enabled internet, and you have 4G that enabled smart devices that had a lot of like content stream to them. Now 5G will connect all of it in like the smart city application. So we are putting billions into this idea, and we actually started testing a few cities in the US, the first one being Washington, D.C., to create like a 5G-enabled network that allows everything to talk to each other.
And it brings up a very interesting question around the ownership of data, security of the data, and who would allow what pieces of data to be used.
Yeah.
I'll call maybe for free to say this is available, it's in a smart city, now you can know what this sensor is saying, versus for my industry, UPS, we are a trusted commodity, and that you would say, as a My Choice customer, I'm going to tell you that I want my deliveries to my back door, but I don't want everybody to know that my deliveries are coming to my back door.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I don't want that information to be put out there, and I don't want any kind of a sensor, spitting out that information to anybody. But of course, I want UPS to have that information. So I can see almost a tiered level of sensor data. This is for everybody. This is just for trusted entities, and I get to pick who those trusted entities are and even change that.
Who's going to set that up? Is it the city's job? Is it the government's job? Whose job is it to regulate who's going to have that governance right over all that data?
Well, I think that goes back to why we're looking at standards.
Right.
To go through these standards bodies and make those, set those out, like we've done in the past.
Got it. And Eugene, from a robotics perspective, it's part of the Internet of Things, right? It's a connected device. How do you think about the evolution of IoT and what role the robot will have within it?
Yep. Each robot that uses our brains is connected to a robotic operating center. We call it ROC.
ROC.
Yeah, like we have network operating center, NOC. This is ROC.
Got it. Robot operating control. Mission control for robots.
Mission control for robots.
Okay.
They're connected all the time. We always hear the heartbeat of those robots. They're all the safety critical functionalities on the robot, so it doesn't require any serial connectivity, but additional features are available if robot is connected that our customers appreciate. And also, robots collect a lot of information, and our view is that the customer owns that information.
Fascinating. Great. I want to move on to vision, because obviously vision for robots is very important, and computer vision has made amazing sort of strides, but also kind of augmented reality and virtual reality. I mean, we write at MIT, we write a lot about these technologies. Nick, I mean, can you just give us a very brief overview of how Samsung is approaching these technologies?
Yeah, we partnered with Oculus to create a pretty inexpensive headset. So we're the #1 headset manufacturer in the US right now.
This is for augmented?
This is for VR.
For VR.
So like the
#1 VR.
Yeah, #1 VR. All of our devices are enabled now with AR, all the latest flagship devices. But when you look at VR, similar path to other technological advancements, it kind of started with like entertainment. And everyone just saw like the value of VR and entertainment. But it's not something that you'd use on a regular basis. And what we found, use cases that kind of spun out of this was things like curing PTSD or helping people who had to rehabilitate, things like walking. So VR actually, we saw tremendous value in the medical side of things. Another random use case.
Medical as in for operations?
I mean both. So we've had doctors tell us that they were able to see how an operation was done in VR before they actually performed it in real life, so it gave them the confidence to be able to go and do it.
Right.
We've seen people use VR to actually like see themselves walking again and being able to rehabilitate in that way. And then another random use case was we saw, so given that we're at a school, like there's no actual football team here, but there's like an NCAA regulation. That wasn't a dig. That wasn't a dig. I'm from here. It's fine.
Let's go March Madness instead.
Yeah.
Oh no, don't do that.
But there's like an NCAA regulation that students can only practice a certain amount of time per like moment, right? So we saw quarterbacks in the NCAA taking virtual snaps in VR to see the plays and to read the defenses, and that didn't count towards their time on the field. So there's so many interesting use cases for VR. Now AR is a whole separate path in our mind, like the idea of mixed reality and being able to see and use your phone to see things that aren't actually there. We just launched a partnership with Disney that showcased AR emojis. And again, it starts with entertainment. It starts with more of the expected items. But we're looking at things on how to integrate apps into the camera, the native camera app that allows augmented reality to be open source technology for other brands to play with us in.
And do you think augmented reality is going to go much faster than virtual reality?
I think so, just because like the idea of putting something on your head and seems so restrictive and and a little bit immersive. And then AR is just something that you can passively do, and since people walk around these days with their phones in front of their face anyways, it's not that much of a different behavior.
It's fascinating. I was interviewing a German, it's called a Mittelstand company. It's like an engineering, middle sort of size engineering company not so long ago. And the head of IT there was telling me, it's like they used to do all these presentations about new machines that they were going to develop. They produced sort of cherry pickers, these big things that go up and allow people to go up very high and sort of fix wires and stuff. And they were coming up with new models, and the younger guys were like, mainly men, I think, in this particular case. There was a couple of female senior managers there, and they were looking at these sort of 2D PowerPoint things, and the older engineers just sit back and they just weren't interested. And all of a sudden, they tried VR, and they put like a VR headset on every engineer, and it was the older workers who were just like, this is amazing. I can spin it around. I can see it like this. And all of a sudden, these ideas came flooding out from the older employees who were very quiet generally when the PowerPoint was used. So this whole kind of like what impact it's going to have on the workforce, I think, is fascinating. You're nodding. And you use it for training?
We use it today for training, just like you mentioned. So for the package car and truck drivers, that you can come in and bring them on board much more quickly. And really, it's about safety. So you want to make sure that you're throwing in safety hazards, from all different sides, from left and right and high and low, and have the driver identify those as they're going along. And then I think it just gives confidence. I think you mentioned that. It provides a level of confidence that I'm ready now, because as you said, we can have schooling, we can sit in the classroom, and we can talk about a child running with a ball in front, or these things happening. Right. But when you're driving along with that environment and it's so immersed, it actually happens. And it's like, whoa, did I do the right thing during that time? And so now that I know I've done it, I feel good I can go do this.
Got it.
And how many people played like Pokemon Go? To see how AR came into pop culture and mainstream culture so quickly. I think it was pretty impressive.
And now all the developer kits are out for Apple and Google and Android. Absolutely. It's like it's going to take off on phones. Yeah. I just wanted to touch on a couple of other technologies before we finish. I mean, Vijay showed this morning a company that's very engaged in blockchain. And so I just checked my Bitcoin price, and it's not doing too well recently. But nevertheless, so I'm going to be in journalism for a while longer. Nevertheless, is any of you using blockchain in your businesses yet?
Yeah. Well, we're involved in it. So we're involved in blockchain for trucking, basically, and looking at international trade. And that, so there are so many different things that blockchain could be used for. I think it's a very disruptive technology.
So how is it being used when you say international trade? Are you using it for tracking packages?
That would be for international trade to basically facilitate it and make it a lot faster. And, of course, absolutely true that this product has moved from this place to this place. So the tracking of that. So, of course, right now it is in standards, creating some standards for international, as well as training around it and education.
Got it.
So it's really in that phase at this point, but I see a lot of opportunity.
I mean, similar, just early phases. Ironically, I'm supposed to be in Korea and Boston to go over this blockchain council with MIT. So I'm here instead of there.
Are you? Why? I don't know, that's good.
Because Vijay told me so.
That's because Vijay told you. That's why you got an A+.
That's how I got
it. Now all is revealed.
Yeah, okay. but I think any company in technology is now starting to explore things like voice, AI, blockchain. These are all the main buzzwords that everyone is, VR, AR. We're all trying to figure out how we can use that to better optimize what we currently do.
Got it. I'd like to just go to the floor in a second. I'm just going to ask one last question then. So have any questions ready for my panelists? Quantum computing. A, can anyone describe what it is? That's the first test. No. B, any of you sort of thinking even possibly about a whole new computing paradigm?
Eugene?
We don't have, there's one problem that we have which requires NP-complete, which is an NP-complete problem which would benefit from quantum computing. Just it's route optimization. Actually, you probably have the same problem.
That's optimizing, yeah.
Right, but the rest of our problems don't require quantum computing. Just they require specialized hardware for to simulate artificial neural networks.
Wow.
But this could be done on a regular Newtonian computers,
right?
If you wish.
Yes. I mean, it will be an interesting year. I mean, you should all keep your eyes out if we achieve what's called quantum supremacy this year, where a quantum computer, which basically are they are generally kind of superconducting metals that basically are kept at colder than deep space temperatures. And if what we think is going to happen happens, for the first time we will find a computer that is capable of doing something that no conventional computer can match within a reasonable time frame. These things are way, way, way far away from commercialization, but they have huge implications for things like cryptography, for route optimization or any optimization problem. And if we get there this year, it will be a significant milestone. There will be a lot of hype around it, but watch this space. In a couple of years, I think we'll have quantum computing session probably in and of itself at the road to reinvention, because we are reinventing computers.
But this is a very important point, is that everything quantum computer can do, a conventional computer can also do. There's not a single thing that, there's no magic there.
Within 10,000 years, apparently.
Yes, the question is how many years,
your
how much it will
robots
cost
might
you.
be around for that, but okay, yes, and how much it costs, that's a great point. I'd like to take some questions from the floor. Anybody want to ask about quantum computing? No, I didn't think so, but any other questions? There's one at the back there.
Quick question for Robin. The navigation app that UPS had designed, considering that it predated Waze, was brilliant. But it seems like a little bit of a missed opportunity to not have commercialized that and made something like that available to the public. Does your organization see it that way? And what are you doing to ensure that future innovation might be explored outside of just your business model and maybe looking to commercialize that outside of the traditional UPS business model?
I mean, that's an excellent and an important question. So I mentioned before the important question of make versus buy. And then also commercialization of technologies is also an ongoing question that we ask ourselves and is even asked in the boardroom. And so I'm not there to make those decisions, but I just want to make it clear that we do look at all those opportunities and think of the trade-offs. And so it's an ongoing conversation about what is our core, and then what would we say that, no, we're going to keep it core for us versus going commercial. And then if we do decide we would take it out and maybe license the technology, you know, how would we go about doing that? Would that be as part of our company or spin it off to a different company? So all those kind of conversations are absolutely happening.
Time for one more question. Anybody? I have one more question. Of course, these amazing technologies can be used by yourselves, but there could also be entrants that come into your business. I'm thinking perhaps of a certain company that just bought Whole Foods and does various other things and might decide to do its own shipping. I mean, how do you think about the competitive space and how this might impact them? It might impact dynamics.
This is for me?
Yes, I think so. I don't think they're doing Samsung.
No,
beer fridges.
It's a really, really exciting time. So I think of just where things are going and how quickly they're going. And I'll just take e-commerce, you know, for example. It's just exploding. So the level of opportunities that we have, and I'd say at UPS we've been innovating for years. We're a 110-year-old company, but it's the pace of change.
Right.
So the pace of change is happening now. We have over 400,000 employees around the world.
Yeah.
And really, we just have this culture of service, and it's about service and for all of us. And I think of the innovations are coming on the edge. So many innovations are happening really everywhere in the world, and we just announced a smart grid that happened in the UK.
Yes.
So
yes,
some technologies that happened with our partners there, so that we can power every truck, UPS truck in the UK that is an electronic vehicle. But without overwhelming the grid.
Yeah.
So that was it was just a problem statement.
Yeah, if you turned all the UK's kettles off, there would have been a revolution.
It's a big problem. But and also upgrading the grid was so expensive.
It's absolutely. No,
so they just took a problem.
It was a phenomenal piece of technology.
That group of folks took
phenomenal
a problem.
Piece of technology.
So to your point, I mean, the innovations are happening
It's what
everywhere.
Vijay said right at the beginning. It's like, you know, you've got to know your core competencies. If you compete and use technology to leverage your core competencies, you can stay ahead of the entrants who may come in. So terrific. Ladies and gentlemen, please thank my panelists.